to the RunRX Podcast, where we talk about all things running. As many runners know, it's 90% mental. So join Coach Valerie and Coach Caroline as we go through the mental side of running.
Welcome to the RunRX Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Caroline, and I'm here with Coach Valerie. Coach, we always hear, or I've heard for years, this concept of the twos, too much, too soon, too fast. And we've all gone out and that first mile, sometimes it sucks, but that first mile, that first 5K, it's awesome. You feel great. And then all of a sudden, the second half of that 10K, you suck, you get slower. But if I'm going out too fast, if that's what the problem is I've gone out too fast, how do I gauge? Because you also say don't go out too slow, don't spend too much time on the ground. How do I know what to do? How do I figure that out?
Yeah,
you don't want me going too slow, right?
Right. Well, and that honestly, it's a great question. And one thing, and this is kind of funny, but it's also true. I tell especially ladies, please don't talk during the warm up in the first mile. You're wasting so much good energy. What we recognize is, when you start a run, you're fresh, you're a little bit, you're hopefully starting with a recovered body. So what happens is, because you feel so good at the beginning, a lot of people, and when we say go out too fast, and you're right, what does that mean? Well, first of all, if you were training for a race, and as a coach, I would have someone, of course, start their first, even up to their second mile in their training run, much lower pace than race pace. Now, if someone has never raced before and they're just out running and they're like, how do I know?
Right.
I'm a big, two ways. One, and this is important for people, the challenge in the first mile is it's kind of like your warm up. You want to set where you want to be for your run. And so many people, because they're so excited about racing, their adrenaline's up, their heart rate's up, all of the factors of racing are actually happening. So when they start their run, they actually put themselves in a position that they cannot hold on to. And so then what happens is that we can't hold on to it. So then you start to, your body will start to kind of take over, and your movement will slow down, unfortunately, and you'll spend more time on the ground. Because if I'm not sure how to respond to that stimulus and I start moving my arms and legs more, I'm just going to get fatigued. So that's really, and by the way, a lot of people call it my wheels came off, right? Have you heard that?
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
You're in a race and all of a sudden people are like, man, my wheels came off. And what that means is that they weren't able to keep spinning their wheel. Their cadence went down. Mm-hmm. And so, however, if I just try to move my arms and legs, like I just said, I'm going to get tired. So really, it comes down to, you've got to train. That's part of your training. It's to figure out, where am I supposed to be at the start, the middle, and the finish of the run.
Okay. So I'm starting my training and I go out and it feels really good for that first mile. And then the second mile, I start feeling myself, went out too fast. What do I do?
Stop.
Do it. Stop. Okay, good. I don't back off. I stop and I restart.
Well,
okay.
And this is
because I'm in a training run.
It's a training run. Right.
Right.
Correct. And this is so hard for endurance runners, guys. And we get it. We really do. Man, I want to go out and get those miles. I love seeing that time elapse on my Garmin watch. We get it. The challenge I have is that if my performance is dropping, does it really make sense to keep pushing my body to try to perform? I'm not in the race. Remember, it's a training run.
Right.
So, right. And this is really, and it's so amazing that if you start to tell your body, listen, I hear you. So I'm not holding my pace. I'm going to stop. I'm not going to keep moving. I'm not going to keep walking. I'm going to stop for a minute. I might step side to side. I'm going to get my breathing back under control. I'm going to stretch if I need to, or do a little hop or a drill or something. And then I'm going to get my focus back and get back in my run. And what happens is, sorry, real quick. You've told your body, I'm listening. Because guys, we're not listening to our bodies.
Yeah.
I'm not stopping because my heart rate was too high and I saw it on my watch. It's a very different thing. You have to start feeling and then listening. So if the body's like, I'm going to show you, I don't feel good by slowing down, or I'm twinging or have a pain, then just listen.
Right. What I was going to say though, too, is what we forget. Not only are you're not saying stop altogether. You're saying just take a break, stop, reset, right? That doesn't only reset your body, but it resets your mind before you get into panic mode, before your mind falls off its rails. You can just reset and go, okay, what am I here to do? Get my heart rate down to a little bit more, not all the way down. Maybe just take it down to where, okay, I can go again, right? Do a few drills, get it going. Let's start this again. Let's try this again. Can I do it now and maintain it, right? Is what you're saying. And you just work within that. That's what, and I guess what I'm hearing you say, and the light bulb that's going off, is that is what the training is about, is you use the training runs to get into that groove of knowing where that sweet spot is that you can maintain, so that when it does come to race day, you've already felt it over and over and over again.
Exactly. And then the second part is, so like, and it's funny because we run, guys. I mean, if you've watched any of our stuff, we love drills. And because drills are how you get stronger, how you develop your skill, how you get cardio, elasticity, like it's just amazing. The challenge I tell people is like, using them in your run is fantastic. What I see when people are out running and they stop is either they start to walk,
right,
which I'll talk about in just a second, or I see things like, especially in marathons, people try to run backwards, or they're like stretching their calf on a curb. Like you can just see they're trying to do, what can I do to get out of this pain or make it better, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so the challenge then is that first you have to know what even is a drill in my mind, right? Or what is my running posture? We see so many people, unfortunately, struggle in their running due to how they're holding their upper body way more, and it affects how your legs move. So all of a sudden you're like, my calf hurts, I'm going to keep stretching it, I'm going to keep stretching it. And we can see you're bent at the waist. Well, you can stretch your calf all day, it still has to hold, see what I mean? So the challenge as a coach, guys, for you to know is that learning how to put yourself back into your run is the number one way to first learn what it feels like to be at any pace of your run. Right? I mean, that's kind of the best part of what we do. And then when you know what it's supposed to feel like, then you're actually able to, you can correct yourself before you get to that point where you have to stop. However, if you let yourself stop and keep telling your body this is okay, then we're going to reset and restart. Just imagine how much happier that relationship is.
Yeah. So what about the walking side of it? So I shouldn't stop and walk. What's that about?
Okay. And this is important because we really work a lot with injured people, and we're going to talk another topic on how you can actually learn to run using walking with our method, which is exciting. So I have nothing against walking. However, when I'm trying to develop a cardio base, an endurance base, a running base, because I want to run, well, then I want to let my body know, I promise we'll stop and rest. But we're going to stop, we're going to rest, we're going to breathe, we're going to reset, and then we're going to run again. Because if I ask my body to continue moving, then you're not communicating anything other than movement. And walking is a separate movement from running.
Right.
So your thoughts are still, unfortunately, on traveling rather than how you're traveling. And we really want you to be in the moment, in the run, whether it's a race or a training or just you're out for a run. The more you're running in that moment, the better your run. That's why we want you to do that.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, because I've had people say, well, yes, it's a different movement. So you're allowing your body to rest while you're doing this other movement, right?
How are you resting?
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. But what you're telling me is I'm not resting. I'm not letting my body know that I'm hearing it and resting. I'm also not resting my mind because my thoughts are still about traveling or getting to the next spot. And my thought would be, unless you're trying to, like, this is a life or death situation and you need to get to that location because it's life or death, then yes, you crawl, you you walk, you do whatever you have to
Well,
do.
I mean, I just think that it's just that understanding that when I'm training to be a better runner and I want to feel good in my running, that we need to say, okay, then if I'm not feeling good, let me stop for just a minute and then restart again, and not be scared of that too, because the fear people have is what if I stop moving and I can't start running again? I'm scared my legs will cramp up, my muscles will get cold. You see, these are all things we've heard before. So those are the belief systems that I want to help people with. And that's why the drills come in so good, because if you stop for a minute and you get your breathing down, you could do some jumping jacks. You could do a few curb runs, get your body and your mind back into, okay, here we go again. See, if you're able to walk, that means you're able to keep moving. So the issue with you stopping wasn't, I can't keep moving. It was, it doesn't feel good to keep moving. So let's not move again until it feels okay again. And, you know, that's the thing too. When you want to run distance and you don't, again, like I promise, if you keep doing that, you won't have to stop all your runs forever, but you've got to learn.
That was going to be my next thing, is we've seen that time and time again with the people that come through our membership, is they'll be like, oh, no, I can't. Or then I'm going to get used to running only this 10 meters or whatever. I need to run farther than that. And what's so amazing is when we can get past it, the mind is truly incredible, and your body will really do whatever your mind can believe it can. Right. So if you can get past, let your mind say, okay, I hear you, your mind can tell your body, I hear you, I'm going to take a break here. And I'm going to go again. I'm going to go to that tree. Like we've talked about, that stop sign, that tree, that light.
Right.
And then I'm going to go again. Then I'm going to go again. And you will be amazed over time. And I'm not talking years, I'm talking days, I'm talking weeks. All of a sudden you're going to be like, oh, I passed the tree because I was feeling good, or I passed the lights. Right. And I made it all the way to the stop sign, which normally would have been my third stop.
Right.
That's how you get back out there. And we forget that process of learning that I think that we had as children, or that we had when we started new things. I always bring up the car, right? And the checking of your mirrors. We forget to check our mirrors. We forget to check in with our body and give it those little step-by-steps before we go out and go on a cross-country, trip across across Texas or whatever. But no, that makes perfect sense. So what you're saying with circling back to the whole going out too fast.
Okay, so what starts to happen then, just like you said, when you start to learn how to be in the moment is what I call it. And you start practicing. Let me practice the beginning of my run. Let me practice the middle of my run. Let me practice the finish line. Then you start putting all that practice together. You've got your race. Not just your race, guys. This should be.
Let me make sure I'm understanding that. So maybe this first run, I'm going to go out on Tuesday, let's say. Okay, today's goal is to practice the start of my run. And maybe Thursday, I decide I'm going to start work on the middle. So I start.
No, you'll follow the training plan.
Okay.
But that's how the training, but I'm telling you, that's how my training plans are written. That's what people have to learn. That's the whole point of following a training plan, is to help you learn. And then you understand why you're training for what you're training. Does that make sense? Like the reason, guys, that there is a run warm up is to learn how to run the first part of your run. Okay. So in all of our training plans, the first 1 to 5 miles of your run is actually a run warm up, depending on the length of your training.
Okay.
And we don't even start intervals. Even if you're training for, let's say you're training for a 5K. I love 5Ks. I love marathon, love it all. So let's say 5K, and the training plan today says on your 5K training, you're going to do 20 minutes of a run warm up mix. It's guided. You know what to do because you're with me, but not with me, but you've been following. So I say to you, you're going to spend 20 minutes doing, I don't know, let's say 1, 2, 3 breathing drills plus metronome. And then at the end of that 20 minutes, you're going to do 5 30-second runs with a minute rest in between. Let's just say that's
Okay.
your day, right?
Okay.
So what you're
Right.
learning in that 20 minutes of the run, drill, skill, warm up, that eventually turns into your first mile or your first and second mile. It's really interesting. And then you do the intervals after, and that's training you for basically the middle to the finish line. So once you're training, you understand the why of what's in there. And then once a week, you do a run that's continuous or a movement that's continuous, because that's training for the duration of the run, that middle part. And then once a week, you've got these middle intervals, I call them. They're long intervals. And that does get you ready for the middle of your run. But you can't just think, well, today I'm training for the first part or this part, right? But then you start
And that's why you need
understanding.
a coach. That's why you
Correct,
need to
yeah.
work with somebody
Yeah.
like you that develops these plans with that in mind, with that goal, with that kind of intention of the run. And it's
And-
interesting
Yeah.
that, I mean, you don't call it that. We don't call it, this is your beginning of your run, right?
Right, but then
But-
I'm like, well, maybe we should, I mean, but the challenge
No,
is
because
again,
then people, we know people
I know,
will just
I know,
start,
'cause
they'll just,
we
go,
la-
well, I
we,
just need to work on the
yeah.
beginning of my run.
we just laugh because, right, but that's why I said to you, like, it's hard to say, well, Thursday I'm going to work on the middle part of my
Right,
run, it's,
Right. That's why I'm
it's,
kind of laughing.
yeah,
Because without realizing it, guys, because I work on these plans with her all the time. I help her write them up and we put them out to the group and we get these great results, right? And it's like, wow, you were just very slyly putting in there this beginning, middle, and even finishing your run without even telling us that that's what you're doing. So I think that's really remarkable. And another great reason why people should join us when we open up our program at the end of September, October, coming up here pretty soon. If you're on our mailing list, you should be getting these listings of the podcast. We will probably be talking about this on the podcast in the next coming weeks. And hopefully you will be able to learn more about these as we go forward. So we will talk to you next week.
Thank you for joining us on the RunRX Podcast. If you'd like to know more, join us at www.runrx.fit. And if you have additional questions that you'd like answered on the podcast, email us at support@runrx.fit.